Some films are really hard and painful, and some, are hard and less painful, but influences.
He's the mythmaker who democratized the Force, the dreamer who transformed Saturday matinee serials into modern mythology. George Lucas didn't just direct films, he rewrote the rules of storytelling for a generation raised on television.
Star Wars, so it's going off in a different path than what I intended. But the first 6 are very much mine.
Proving that ancient wisdom could wear futuristic clothing. But when he reflects on the cinema that forged his vision, Lucas doesn't sound like the architect of a multimedia empire. He sounds like that kid who discovered magic in a darkened theater. I wanted to make a space fantasy that was aimed at young people, because I think that young people today don't have any fantasy stories. For Lucas, cinema has always been about wonder. The kind of wonder that makes children believe they can pilot starships and adults remember what it felt like to dream without limits. His films don't just entertain, they transport viewers to galaxies where heroism matters and good ultimately triumphs over evil. The movies that showed him how spectacle could serve mythology, how technology could amplify rather than replace human emotion, how the oldest stories could feel revolutionary when told with conviction. From samurai epics to Western adventures, from war films to fairy tales, Lucas's 6 favorite movies decode his formula for turning entertainment into inspiration. Here comes George Lucas naming his 6 favorite movies, the films that taught him how to make magic feel real. 6. The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, 1948. John Huston made an adventure film about greed-consuming friendship, and for Lucas, watching Humphrey Bogart's Fred Dobbs transform from decent prospector to paranoid killer, while Walter Houston's wise old-timer warned about gold fever, it was the perfect lesson in how character drove the best adventure stories.
And we're able to relate it to young people and saying this is what, and relate the stories.
Here was a filmmaker who understood that external quests were really internal journeys, that the most dangerous enemies weren't bandits or harsh landscapes, but the demons people carried within themselves. The story followed 3 Americans seeking fortune in the Mexican mountains, but Houston's genius was in the psychological deterioration, the way isolation and temptation revealed true character. The film's desert setting became a crucible that stripped away pretense and social conditioning, leaving only essential human nature exposed to harsh sunlight and harsher choices. Lucas discovered it during his film school years, when he was learning that successful adventures required audiences to care about who was having them. The film's exploration of how ordinary people could become heroes or villains depending on circumstances influenced his understanding of character development. You see Sierra Madre in Luke Skywalker's temptation by the dark side, in Anakin's gradual corruption by power, in every Lucas story where characters face moral tests that reveal their true selves. The Treasure of the Sierra Madre taught me that the best adventures are about internal transformation, that external conflicts only matter when they force characters to discover who they really are underneath their assumptions about themselves. 5. The Magnificent Seven, 1960. John Sturges made a Western about assembling heroes to defend the helpless, and for Lucas, watching Yul Brynner recruit 6 gunfighters to protect a Mexican village from bandits, it was the definitive template for how ensemble adventures should work.
And you literally let it be on there for 32 seconds? 32 frames? That's crazy. But it works, because that's why a lot of people went back and...
Here was a film that understood that the most compelling stories weren't about lone heroes, but about diverse individuals who became stronger when united around a noble cause, each contributing unique skills while serving something larger than personal glory. The story borrowed from Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, but translated it into familiar American mythology, proving that universal themes could cross cultures while maintaining their emotional power. But Sturges's achievement was in the character dynamics, the way he developed 7 distinct personalities who remained individual while functioning as a unified force when duty called. Lucas absorbed it during his early career when he was developing his own approach to ensemble storytelling, learning that successful teams required careful balance between different personality types and skill sets. The film's structure, where individual recruitment scenes establish character before bringing everyone together for the climactic battle, became his blueprint for introducing multiple protagonists. The Magnificent Seven taught me that the most inspiring stories are about people choosing to do the right thing, even when it's dangerous. That heroism isn't about being fearless, but about acting despite fear. The Searchers, 1956. John Ford made a Western that examined the dark side of American heroism. And for Lucas, watching John Wayne's Ethan Edwards pursue his kidnapped niece across Monument Valley while wrestling with his own capacity for violence.
Group of ideas and characters and books and all kinds of things. We could go on making Star Wars for the next 100.
It was a complex lesson in how heroes could be morally ambiguous without losing their mythic power. Here was a filmmaker who understood that the most compelling protagonists were often the most conflicted ones, that true courage sometimes meant confronting your own worst impulses rather than external enemies. The story followed Edwards on a years-long quest to recover Debbie from Comanche raiders, but Ford's genius was in the psychological complexity, the way he explored how the line between justice and revenge could blur when personal stakes became overwhelming. The film's Monument Valley locations provided an epic canvas for intimate character study, proving that spectacular landscapes could amplify rather than dwarf human drama. Lucas studied it obsessively during his development of the Star Wars saga, recognizing that Ford had created a template for how mythic figures could carry real psychological weight. The film's exploration of how good people could harbor dark impulses influenced his approach to Anakin Skywalker's fall and redemption, showing how heroes and villains often shared more similarities than differences. The Searchers taught me that the most powerful myths acknowledge the complexity of human nature. The true heroism comes from choosing light over darkness, even when darkness offers easier solutions to difficult problems. 3. Lawrence of Arabia, 1962. David Lean made an epic about transformation and the cost of bridging two worlds. And for Lucas, watching Peter O'Toole's T. Lawrence evolve from eccentric British officer to legendary desert warrior while losing pieces of himself in the process.
There was no characters, no plot. Again, I thought it was a real straightforward movie in the industry.
It was the ultimate education in how spectacle could serve character development. Here was a filmmaker who proved that the biggest stories required the most intimate understanding of human psychology. That epic scope meant nothing without emotional authenticity at its center. The story traced Lawrence's journey from observer to participant in the Arab revolt against Turkish rule. But Lean's genius was in showing how Lawrence's greatest victories became his most profound defeats. The film's famous desert sequences weren't just visual poetry, but psychological landscapes, external environments that reflected internal states of transformation and isolation. Lucas encountered it when he was grappling with how to make his own space epic feel emotionally grounded despite its fantastic elements. The film's patient character development, taking time to show transformation rather than simply declaring it, influenced his approach to Luke Skywalker's journey from farm boy to Jedi Knight. You see Lawrence of Arabia in every Lucas story about ordinary people discovering extraordinary destinies, in the way his characters must leave familiar worlds to find their true calling. The film's exploration of how crossing cultural boundaries could change someone forever resonated with Lucas's own interest in Eastern philosophy and mythology. Lawrence's struggle to maintain his identity while adapting to alien customs became a template for characters navigating between different worlds and value systems. Lawrence of Arabia taught me that the most epic stories are really intimate portraits of transformation, that spectacular settings only matter when they help us understand what's happening inside the characters. 2. Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, 1954. Akira Kurosawa made a film about warriors protecting farmers that became the ultimate lesson in how action and character could serve each other. And for Lucas, watching Toshiro Mifune's Wild Kikuchiyo unite with 6 disciplined samurai to defend a helpless village, it was revelation about how diverse personalities could create perfect dramatic chemistry.
At that point is when I was actually exposed to Kurosawa, and a friend of mine, John Milius, actually was a...
Here was a filmmaker who understood that the best action sequences grew from character relationships, that audiences cared about fighting only when they cared about the fighters. The story followed 7 warriors hired to protect a farming village from bandits, But Kurosawa's genius was in the preparation sequences, the way he developed individual personalities through their approach to collective problems. The film's 3-hour runtime allowed for deep character exploration, showing how trust built gradually through shared challenges and mutual respect, rather than instant camaraderie. Lucas discovered it during film school and returned to it repeatedly while developing Star Wars, recognizing that Kurosawa had created the perfect template for ensemble adventure storytelling. The film's influence extended beyond character dynamics to visual techniques, with Kurosawa's use of telephoto lenses and dynamic composition becoming central to Lucas's own directorial style. The way Seven Samurai balanced humor and drama, spectacular action and quiet character moments became the foundation for his approach to mixing genres. Seven Samurai taught me that great action films are really great character films with exciting sequences, that audiences will follow heroes anywhere if they care about who those heroes are and why they're fighting. 1. The Hidden Fortress, 1958. Akira Kurosawa made an adventure film told from the perspective of two bumbling peasants who stumble into a princess's escape from enemy territory. And for Lucas, watching these comic characters witness epic events while remaining fundamentally unchanged by them.
They said the same thing, which is, this is crazy. And so they said, we'll show it to marketing.
It was the perfect template for how grand stories could feel accessible and intimate. Here was a filmmaker who understood that the best way to make audiences feel part of an adventure was to give them characters who were as confused and overwhelmed as they would be in similar circumstances. The story follows Tahei and Matashichi as they unwittingly help a disguised princess and her loyal general transport gold across enemy lines to restore her to power. But Kurosawa's genius was in the perspective, the way he filtered epic events through ordinary eyes, making royal intrigue and military strategy feel immediate and personal, rather than distant and mythological. Lucas has acknowledged that The Hidden Fortress was the primary inspiration for Star Wars, providing not just plot elements, but the crucial decision to tell the story from the droid's point of view. The film's structure, beginning with the lowest characters and gradually revealing the larger conflict, became his template for introducing audiences to complex fictional worlds. You see Hidden Fortress in every aspect of the original Star Wars, from C-3PO and R2-D2's comic relief function to Princess Leia's disguised identity to the desert planet setting. The film's blend of comedy and adventure, its understanding that humor could enhance rather than undermine dramatic stakes, influenced Lucas's approach to balancing different tones within single narratives. Kurosawa's ability to make ancient stories feel contemporary through universal character types became the foundation for Lucas's own approach to mythology. The Hidden Fortress taught me that the most epic stories work best when seen through ordinary eyes, that wonder comes from discovery, not from already knowing how magnificent everything is supposed to be. And there it is. 6 films that didn't just entertain Lucas, they programmed his creative DNA for turning ancient wisdom into modern mythology. Not the obvious choices, but the transformative ones. The movies that proved spectacle without heart was empty, that technology should serve timeless stories. What films taught you to believe in magic?